uh, we decided before we went live that we were going to talk about uh, Lou. You had mentioned the ruling that came down today.
Yeah, it was Trump's taxes are put on hold again, pending um, his lawyers preparing an argument again. And it's just like I think we talked about before. Is a subpoena even worth it the way they're playing around here? I guess if you got enough money, you can hang anything up for a long time.
I suppose, Frank, you had a little bit of insight into that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that we get this ruling because Cyrus Vance, who is the prosecutor in that case, had openly agreed to not enforce the subpoena or attempt to enforce the subpoena pending a final ruling from the courts. So the fact that there's a stay issued by this federal appeals court, which is not the last stop in this matter, obviously the last stop is the Supreme Court. The fact they've issued a stay it's like gilding the lily. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you need that for? The guy who's holding the subpoena already said he's not gonna try to enforce it until you get a final word.
So is this just basically going through the motions?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels that way. It kind of feels like, what are they going to do? Ultimately, allow him to delay, which is something we've talked about. It's a broken record because that's his playbook, is just delay, because justice delayed is justice denied. And we're never going to find out in time to do anything with it before November. And that's his intention.
It's this little article here says that Trump and his lawyers have long misrepresented the scope of the investigation as focusing primarily on hush money payments that were paid to protect Trump from adultery allegations. Vance's lawyers said they are legally entitled to extensive records to aid a complex financial investigation.
So you got conflicting arguments.
Yeah, I think that they're trying to play it off to people that it's a Trump's lawyers are trying to play it off as they're just looking for Stormy Daniels money and not really, to me, not telling the whole story that Vance's probably don't give a shit about Stormy Daniels money. He wants to know how much Russian money's there. Russian mob money, probably, to be exact.
Doesn't it say a whole lot to you that you have a clown who at this point isn't even trying to deny that he paid this hush money, that he did all of this. How do you go after somebody who has no shame?
And I thought those payments were violation of campaign money.
Frank?
Yeah, I think they are, but it doesn't matter ultimately because nobody's willing to enforce anything. I'm of the belief that at this point, if we wanted to stop, meaning like if our society and our system of justice wanted to stop these things from going on, they could stop them. He's one man. Yes, the presidential office has some authority and power and has some weight, but if they wanted to stop him, they could stop him. Nobody really truly wants to stop him. I'm of the belief that they've got us all right where they want us. The whole politician cabal is all together, including the Democrats in Congress. I really believe that the pandemic, the COVID-19, is biological warfare against the people. They're killing us off, and the ones that are left under control because of fear. And they could have stopped this whole thing of misinformation from the beginning again, because you got one person who's leading this misinformation. We had a system of checks and balances in place, and everybody clutches their pearls and frets and says, "Oh, they could have got him a long time ago. They could have held the purse strings up. They could have forced him out into the open, but they didn't want to. So there's got to be a lot of people complicit in this. It's illegal as hell. Everything's illegal that he's done. They just don't want to go after it. They've been holding up on a memo, not even the law. We talked about this before. A memo. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. I don't believe any of it anymore. I don't believe any of it. The Democrats are full of shit. The Republicans are full of shit. They're fucking us. That's what they're doing.
You think this is why Pelosi is going after the Senate instead of trying to get back the presidency?
Maybe, but I don't even think she's on our side. I don't think any of them are.
I mean, you're right. She could have held the purse strings long ago and shut the Justice Department down.
Yep.
Well, I mean, she does have red state Republican or Democrats that she has to protect. I mean, is it worth potentially sacrificing the House for?
The country's at stake. The whole being of our democracy has been at stake. Everything was worth it.
I'm not arguing. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. Frank, what do you think?
I know. I'm on fire today, Patsy.
That's all right. We'll go with it. It makes for a good fight.
You know what? Sometimes I totally agree with Frank, but I don't want to believe it. I
know you don't want to believe it.
But, it's like, okay, is there like 5 people out of the 450 that actually have scruples and can't do anything? Or for however many there are, what is it? However many it totals out to in Congress. I always forget the number.
535, something.
Somewhere in that range.
It just irritates me that they act like, oh, we can't do anything because they won't comply with this, they won't comply with that. What have they even tried to do? I know they impeached him, but they knew from the beginning that was doomed in the sense that the Senate would never vote to, and that's fine. They had to go through the exercise. I don't have a problem with that. But there's so many other levers that they could pull, and they don't try.
435, by the way.
Here you go. 435, not
435 in the House.
Oh, then you add the Senate, and that's 535, right?
Yeah. Well, that's how you get the 535, which is the number of delegates in the Electoral College.
There you go.
Just so everybody knows, that's how it works. Okay, and the number of people or votes you get in the Electoral College is the same number of representation you have in both the Senate and the House combined. Which is why you see so many states that have higher numbers than others. Whenever you're looking at the electoral map, that's why. All right, it's a combination of add them up. California has the most or the second most. I can't remember because that state has the most representation. If you count all of the House seats and all the Senate seats, that's add them together. That's the number of votes that they get in the Electoral College. It's the most bullshit way to run an election in the history of the world. You're better off like how they do in Russia. We're like, yeah, you got a shot. Oh wait, you lost. Try again. Right? It really is. Our fearless leader went to Kenosha today. Even though the mayor, the governor, everybody in the who has anything to do with the place didn't want him there. And he blamed anti-American riots for the damage. He said Kenosha has been ravaged by anti-police and anti-America riots. He said that he would provide $1 million to Kenosha law enforcement so you have some extra money to go out and do what you do. To go out and do what you do. What the fuck is that? To go out and do what you do. before I get crazy, is there any reason for him to go there and not talk to both sides of this, or at least to the folks who have been protesting now for almost 100 days? Lou?
You know what? He also threw bull in there that he claimed he talked to Blake's pastor, and only to be found out that Blake doesn't even go to church anywhere.
So there was no pastor.
There is no pastor.
Why do you say pastor? What if Blake was Catholic? What if he was one of us?
So
That's about as racist as it gets. He's a black guy, so he has a pastor.
yeah, we got a black priest down at Holy Spirit, you know.
Mhm.
So you got, so you know, all he was going there for is to stoke it up a little more.
Right. What if the guy was Jewish? Oh my God. No one catches it. Why come nobody looks at these things and say, wait a minute? Or does everybody just fall in line and say, oh, well, okay.
You know what? The media has been played so bad, and they don't even kick back on it.
They've been played, or they
They're chasing Trump's tail no matter what he does.
They're willfully played.
It's true.
I have to admit, at this point, they're willfully played. Frank, I'm not even playing devil's advocate this time. I'm dead serious. They're woefully played. No organization, nobody's this naive. Not after 4 years.
Right. Nope.
You know?
You're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, I can't agree with you more. They're so willfully complicit in this. You know, the normalization of, just look what we saw at the RNC when, you know, he did all this stuff from the White House. I just don't understand how, you know, the media didn't just explicitly call this illegal, you know, repetitively. That the president is engaged in illegal activities, breaking the law repetitively throughout the RNC by holding campaign events in government property at the White House. It's not a breaking of norms and traditions, it's breaking the law. And they should have been called it out as such every single day.
You know, they still talk, describe what he says or what Kayleigh McEnany says as untruths, or right? What?
They're lying.
An untruth is, Lou, whenever I tell you something and I'm mistaken. Okay, whenever I tell you, no, Lou, I'll be more. I can. The sky's green. And then I look up and go, oh, wait, the sky is blue. Sorry about that. That's an untruth. Okay? When I tell you the sky is green, we both look up and we see it's blue. And I look at you and I say, no, Lou, it's green. That's a lie. That's what they're doing. Okay? And the press still refuses to call it out as a lie. It's still an untruth or a misspeak or an alternate whatever. It's a lie. And they still don't hold them to this.
Why don't these, you know what, if you're a journalist and you're in that pool and they don't, you know, and you ask a question and he won't answer it and he goes to the next journalist should say, why don't you answer his question first?
Yeah, and they won't.
And they won't do that. All the way around. Just piss them off to no end.
Every one of them.
I want to hear the answer to what Jim just said.
And they should do that and if they did it for a week, one of two things they'd stop having pressers. But still, that's what needs to be done. At some point, they have to be the fourth pillar and not be a revenue source.
That's all they are, is a revenue source.
Right? They have to. They can't sit there and continue. I mean, you do have integrity that you have to, at some point, has to come into play. Or these folks just don't give a shit as much as he does. Okay? I don't get it. Why do they not go down? Well, of course, they'll get the Fox News or, something else, and they'll just ask them some question like, what time is it or whatever. But how do if you're a legitimate news source or want to be a legitimate news source, Frank, maybe, what are your 2 cents? Why are these folks not holding them to and they throw them snowballs half the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's I think there's some individual journalists who have integrity and want to get to the bottom of the story, but the corporation that they work for overall is going to, part of me has always believed that there's money in it. I think we've all kind of agreed to that to some extent. There's money in the horse race. There's money in allowing for the craziness of Trump to keep eyes glued on the TV set. They love to have his outlandish stories posted for clicks every day, right? And to drive revenue and to drive people to their site. And then if they make him irrelevant by totally beating him into the ground, then they lose their cash cow for sure, And it's like, maybe we can keep him around for a little bit longer. Maybe we can keep him around and weaken him just enough that, we can use him. But you've talked about Frankenstein's monster in so many different contexts, right? And that's what I see him as. It's like they have this weird relationship with him where they need him at this point. And they can't let go of this cash cow they've got in him. They can't bury him.
Let me throw this one at both of you. I will argue that folks love drama, right? They do. This is why you see these reality shows all over the place. They're stupid as shit, and everybody watches them because there's drama in them, right? They're the dumbest things on the freaking planet, right? The Bachelor is the dumbest thing that God ever created. Okay, but yet it's been around for 600 years because people like that shit. Because there's drama involved, and you get a blonde chick who's built like a freaking brick shit house, and all of a sudden she's sitting there crying because this guy decided to say no, and everybody wants to watch it, right? Here's what I'll tell you. Let's if you were able to take that same dynamic and throw it at the president every day for 4 years, how would you not be the highest rated news thing? If MSNBC did that every day for 4 years, instead of saying, oh, he misspoke or he did this or he did that, and just pounded him every day and kept him on his heels and made him do nothing but motherfuck you in tweets every day, how are you not the highest rated or most watched network on cable television? Lou?
I agree. It comes back to, we talked about this how long ago? Who's the director of news at MSNBC?
I'll be Chucky Todd.
Well, who's above him, though? It was a Republican operative or conservative owner that was trying to make it go more conservative. So all they're doing is playing the games. They let Rachel have her fun at night. They toned down Ari. If you look at him sometimes, he can be asking some harder questions than some of the people he has on.
Yeah.
They don't always knock everybody down.
And I'm half convinced the only reason that they that they're giving Maddow the lead, enough rope that she's getting is because her ratings are through the roof. That's it, right? I mean, she's very cerebral, and she definitely appeals to a certain type of person. I don't even want to say demographic, but a certain. If you're watching Maddow, you do a lot of thinking, right? Because I mean, she gets into the weeds. Go ahead.
Could you imagine if the whole lineup was something similar to her? It wouldn't have the same appeal. So you've got her, the voice of reason in this wilderness that's out there, where the rest of the world is just like blissfully going through, like it's the Kardashians, right? We're just going to have fun with this reality TV as it goes along. And then you've got her as the voice of reason, and a lot of people are flocking to that voice of reason. But if you had more of that spread out through the day, it would be blunted, right? So yeah. I agree with you.
Well, let's face it. Chris Hayes before her, he is the Kardashians, right? I mean, he is that level of entertainment. He is. I mean, there's not a whole lot of in-depth, deep thinking going on his show. Far more on Ari Melber's, right? I mean, he used to be until they decided to make him a lot more commercial. Joy Reid's kind of the odd one out there because she makes you think a little bit, but she's not as deep as Rachel, but yet not as shallow as Chris Hayes. So hers is different. You know, hers is more mainstream. I think hers is more of your mainstream hour of news talk than. I mean, she has a definite slant and definite spin, and she's very good. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love watching her show, but it's not nearly as deep as Madhouse.
Yep.
Yeah. Not nearly.
She's the introduction into that, you know, because I think some people aren't prepared yet to think that deeply, and they need it a little bit more sugar coated and a little easier to swallow, so to speak, and maybe she's that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it was not a criticism by any means. It's just that well, you got to be on your game, and you got to pay attention whenever you're watching Maddow, because what she tells you tonight isn't going to hit you for another 2 weeks. Yeah. You know, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, holy shit, she was right about that. She's still the best out there. Maybe not the most entertaining, but definitely the best. Boy, I don't have a good segue into this, and I'm sorry, guys. I wish I could, but it's Facebook, and it's very difficult for me to go to an easy segue into Facebook. Where is this thing here? I got to give credit where credit is due. Okay, you guys have heard me for how long? Just absolutely blasting Facebook, right?
Yes.
And I'm by in no means taking them off the hook, but I think it's only fair that we talk about something they do right whenever they do something right, because I'm always one to jump on them whenever they do something wrong. In my defense, they do a lot of things wrong, but it seems to me that they are at least on the surface trying to step up a little bit. Now, this is a Russian operation. It is not Trump per se. Excuse me. But what happened was Facebook removed a network of fake accounts and pages created by Russian operatives who have recruited U.S. journalists to write articles critical of Democratic nominee Joe Biden and Senator Kamala Harris in an apparent bid to undermine support among liberal voters. Now, I will say this much. I did a little bit of digging into this, and I'm not going to go through every article I read. This was just the one that stuck out the most. And besides, I like sourcing the Washington Post. The U.S. journalists that they basically hired, from what I could read, from what I could understand, were as bamboozled as everybody else. They were not in cahoots by any means. However, I mean, they still did what they did, but this is starting to get a little deeper. The Russian disinformation network is really starting to step up their game a little bit, and it's going to get to the point where you're not going to know who to believe on Facebook anymore. Yet another reason why I'm on. Do you guys think that? And I should point out before we go any further that whenever I put up a clip from our channel, from our thing, and I run an ad on it, okay, the vetting that I had to go through to get this was absolutely insane, just to be able to put the ad up. You have no idea what I had to go through just to put up the one we had the other day about schools reopening. It was yesterday, right? It was insane what I had to go through in order to be a source so I can get that up there. I'm assuming that these folks had to go through something similar. Do you think that this is a step in the right direction? Do you think they're doing enough, or do you think that this is just token and they just don't give a shit? They're just in Trump's pocket. That's all there is to it.
I think it's a token bone they're throwing, to tell you the truth. I don't trust that bastard as far as I could throw him, and I'm not even close to him.
Frank?
Yeah, I think it's a one of those moves where it's like I feel the heat from my workers. I feel the heat from the advertisers. There is a portion of the shareholders who are starting to rumble, and I have to at least make it look like I'm paying attention and watching, keeping my eye on the ball. And he can, like Lou said, he can take this move and make it go miles and miles and miles with the shareholders and the advertisers, and then he doesn't have to do much after that for a while. So it's like, let's see. I'm at the very least, I want to give some credit to what you said, because as you said, we're quick to pound him when he lets a lot of shit go on. So maybe if it encourages better behavior, let's praise him for at least taking this action right now. But I still want to take a wait and see approach to what happens next.
You think that well, it's very obvious that Zuck and Trump are close. That's pretty apparent. Do you think that his engineers and his folks are going to have any kind of sway with him, or do you think he's literally doing this stuff just to appease people?
I mean, I don't know how closely they watch all those servers, but there's more than one operation by Russia. I mean, think of the thousands of bots that go across on Twitter, from a bot farm. So there's how many groups of hackers do you think that are out there? Not necessarily hackers, but just people making shit up. And a giveaway to a lot of it is, like you always watch, is they're 6 hours ahead of us. All of a sudden, that stuff starts coming online in the middle of the night here. Or 8 hours ahead of us, whatever it is, that time zone.
Yeah.
And there's going to be, he took one down. Is there still 10 there?
Oh,
the last election presidential, I was on Facebook, and just thinking back how much garbage was going across and how many dumbasses believed it.
That's about the time where you and I said that's enough.
Yeah, I think it was after that election.
Yeah.
Especially how I can imagine what it looks like now, garbage with these people that are diehard MAGAs.
Yeah, I don't even want to know.
No.
And QAnon. Oh my God.
So you have a question, and as far as how much does it matter what his engineers are saying, and how much sway is that going to have with him? And I'll say this to you: I think it should have a lot. I'm not sure if he realizes. I think he does, but this was his baby. Facebook was his creation, but it's not what it was before, and it's not going to continue to be what it was before. In order to survive in the future, and we may have talked about this at one point as kind of like a one-off during a conversation we had before, like what's the future of Facebook, what's the future of Snapchat, all that kind of stuff. It's evolving so much, meaning the digital sphere, the online presence is evolving so much. The ability to track your users and find out what is it that is stimulating them to click on something, and to really be precise with people and say, this advertising targeted to Patsy, and this advertising targeted to Lou, and this advertising targeted to Frank. Those algorithms are changing all the time, and how to reach in and pull that stuff out is changing all the time, and they got to get better and better and better at that. And it's not Mark Zuckerberg who's going to be coding that, okay? And it's not Mark Zuckerberg who's going to be, the thought leader on that from his own company, even a year from now, 5 years from now. He needs those guys. He needs those ladies. He needs those people that are going to be so smart and savvy and quick to stay ahead of the game there. And if he doesn't recognize the value of that, he is surely going to be second, third, fourth place behind new emerging technology.
Yep, I agree. And I got to bail out. So I'll be talking to you guys later.
All right.
All right, Lou. Don't get electrocuted.
Nah, that's done for tonight.
There's
I
still
gotta-
a lot, there's still a lot to go. I'm just I have nightmares, dude.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
We'll see you. We'll see you. Frank, you and I talk a lot about this shit, right? I mean, probably more so than we should. And I think a lot of it is because both of us are very behavior means a lot to us, and how things happen mean a lot to us, and the structure means a lot to us, and there's a proper way to do things and an improper way, I should say. I honestly believe that a person should behave in a way that's befitting their station, right? That is, in other words, I do think my job, my school, things like that, right? I should act accordingly, or not, because you left. I'm sorry, he'll be back. But we always make the argument, or at least I do, that a person's behavior is a reflection of their character, and if you're not willing to behave in the way that is a reflection of the office you hold or your status, then you really shouldn't be in that position. And we're seeing that more and more often, and we're seeing that a lot, not only with this clown, but the people he's surrounding himself with. And I asked the question yesterday, and I'm going to ask it again today, because, Frank, I spend a lot of my day, from the time I wake up until the time we get on, researching things that we're going to talk about and subjects that we're going to discuss. And as the day goes on, I just get worn out, right? I get beat up, and I sit there and I keep shaking my head, and I sit there and I say, I can't believe this bullshit. And you get tired of it. You just get tired of all the nonsense. And do you think that the general public, because I mean, this is what we do, and this is our pod, so we're very in tune with these things. Do you think the general public is also looking at this, and like I said, I asked it yesterday, do you think people are just like, you know what, I'm getting tired of this bullshit. This is ridiculous.
I absolutely think so. Anecdotally, the people that are around me, I have the good fortune of being, able to talk to you and Lou and my roommates in Baltimore and my family in Newcastle, and especially my roommates in Baltimore, because they're younger guys who just are single but work out in the world when they're able to pandemic going on, and their social circles, and they don't have kids or they don't have to be, so I guess consumer things. Comes out, the craziness that comes out of the White House. They're fatigued by all that too. So anecdotally, I have to say, yes, I think that the general public is fatigued with all this.
I sure hope so. I hope people are sitting there saying, you know what? All right, we gave it a shot. It's just not working out. Apparently, we should have known better than to hire a reality show host to be president. And I think a lot of people forget that we literally did hire him. I mean, it's a civil service position, for God's sake. We hired him. maybe was not the
Yep.
best hire we
That's
ever
right.
had.
No, not at all.
A couple of things. One thing I did want to point. Actually, there's two things I want to point out to you. I'm not a big fan of very one-sided leaning sources, but I thought this, and the reason I want to show you this is because I'm going to show you something else after this. You're driving, so I don't know how much of this you can actually see, so I'll do my best to describe it. Daily KOS, however the hell you say it. Their headline today was Biden up +8 nationally, +10 in Arizona, +10 in Michigan, +10 in Colorado, +9 in Wisconsin, +4 in PA, which is kind of sad, but it's just out of the margin of error. I think our margin of error is 3. 3 in Georgia, 2 in North Carolina, which is big, 2 in Florida, and tied in Texas, which is even bigger. Remember, I kept saying Texas, Texas, Texas. To put that in perspective, and I understand it is a very one-sided website, right? It's the liberals' version of what do you call it, of Breitbart, but the Hill, who I don't think is too far left, has a 9-point lead, so it's only a difference of a point. And they're basically telling you the same thing, right? And don't forget, all of these are happening now after the convention. Well, this was taken during the convention. The one that the Daily Kos or however the hell you say it, whatever the source of their article was after the convention, and it's only a point difference. So, like I said, that's when you're comparing two polls, 1 point is basically nothing. It appears as though Biden did better coming out of the RNC than Trump did, and I wonder if this argument that we're making is starting to hold some water, and saying that, you know what, people are tired of it. Because I got to tell you, that was the scariest convention I've seen in a long time. Right, that was a whole lot of people who were telling you that the world is going to end. And whenever you're hearing that the world is going to end for 4 years, I wonder if you just get tired of hearing that the world is going to end.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Chicken Little, sky's going to fall, that kind of thing. Some people take it less seriously. Some people are numb to it. Some people are, just overly distraught. Some people talk about like hand wringing around this and then feeling so distraught that they don't act because of it. And I think, going back to your last point before this one, which is, the fatigue, I think that's a strategy too, in the sense of like, it burns people out to the point of inaction. So, it's where you and I come in with each other and with other people around us. When we're feeling this fatigue, we have to lift each other up and say, you know what, we got to carry on. We got to keep moving forward. We got to keep, fighting this fight. Because if we don't, and other people keep feeling like they should just let down their guard too, then who's left to fight it, right?
Oh, we do that a lot. You're seeing the numbers change a little bit. You're seeing things, to be honest. I never thought I would see after a convention, the nominees, or the person who's there for whose convention it is. In this case, we'll say Trump's. I never thought you would actually see the opponent get the bump, right? But if you look at these, Arizona before the convention, Trump 47, Biden 45. Latest, Biden 52, Trump 42, right? So talk about a turnaround. That was in Arizona. And don't forget, this is after the convention, okay? After conventions. This is what it's saying, okay? And this is USA Today. So believe me when I tell you, you had said how right-leaning USA Today is.
Yep.
Colorado, before the convention, Biden 51, Trump 41. It stayed the same. It didn't change. Florida changed by a point, a single point. Okay, Biden 50 to 45. After Biden 49, Trump 47. So a point and a half, actually, if you average it out. Same thing in Georgia, right? Actually, Biden went up 2 points in Georgia after the conventions.
Right.
Biden went up 2 points in Michigan after the conventions. All of these are after. Minnesota stayed the same. North Carolina stayed the same. Biden raised by a point in Ohio. Pennsylvania dropped by a point. It was a point difference. Texas was a point difference. Wisconsin, Biden went up 3 points after the convention. Frank, you don't see this after the Republican and the Democrat already had their. I mean, this is after the Republican who went second.
Yeah.
If that doesn't terrify the shit out of the Republicans, and especially the Republicans who are on the down ticket, the Senate, the House, things like that, what's going to scare them?
Well, it should scare the hell out of them, and I think it's probably scaring the hell out of them. You asked the question about a month and a half ago, when will you see the Republicans start up against Trump? And we said maybe of Republican Party or is the convention of Trump?
Frank, it sounds like I lost you. All right, I'm just going to hang on and just pretend I know what I'm doing until we can get some.
Saying there are a lot of reasonable people out there who watched that and said, "Boy, is this?"
Yeah, I definitely lost you. Oh yeah. Oh, you're gone. Okay, there you go. You're back.
Yeah, so I was just saying, like, you look at the country and they're reacting to that shit show and saying, it shows me that there's a lot of reasonable people out there and said, this was just a convention of a cult of personality, a Trump convention, not a Republican national convention. And they're like, reacting to that and saying, this isn't America. This isn't what we want to see in America. So it's heartening in that way. And, you asked about a month and a half ago, I don't know if you caught this, when will the Republicans abandon Trump? And it seems that that's somewhat happened because I don't remember seeing a lot of big name Republicans. It was more like Trump family members and loyalists at the RNC. There weren't a lot of like luminary Republicans at the convention.
I wonder if you got the Mitch McConnells of the world who said, well, Mitch McConnell specifically, who said, you know what? It's actually going to hurt my numbers if I go to the Republican National Convention. It's actually going to hurt my chances of re-election if I go to this thing. So I'm just going to bail altogether. And I'll come up with some bullshit excuse. You know?
Yeah.
You had the RNC who decided that they weren't going to make a platform. They were just going to let Trump do whatever he wanted to do. How do you what would he do? Well, how could he possibly hurt the Republican brand if is Reince Priebus still in charge of the RNC?
That's a good question. I don't even know.
Well, whoever's in charge, if they sat there and said, look, this is what our platform is going to be, and he tweeted and just whined and complained like a little baby, was it really going to hurt the Republican brand any?
The MAGA part, no, but the Republican brand. When you think of the Republican Party today, as we sit in this moment, what do you think of? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Trump.
Yeah.
MAGAs.
Yeah. So, and I agree, and I think of also, second thing that comes to mind is cowards.
Yeah.
So, I think it's no longer the party of, Lincoln or fiscal conservatism or personal responsibility or family values. And I would argue that maybe some of those things were overreaches in the past. But there was some element of it, a strain of it that ran through the party. And none of that really even in any way, in any small way, resonates with what I think about the Republican Party.
Yeah. It's funny how that happened, right? Because I honestly, I still refuse to believe that they are a majority of the Republican Party, or maybe they are now, but at the time, there's no way they were. And the Republican Party just gave in to these clowns and told them, go ahead and do whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's too bad, because they kneecapped their own party.
They did. And when totally wakes up, or at least let's say a solid 60+% of the country decides to vote against this craziness that's going on in the Republican Party right now, downstream and in the presidential election, it should be the end of this current iteration of the Republican Party. It really should be.
Mm-hmm. And if this is where that party's going, I'm sorry, but it deserves to die. It really does, because it caved into the personality of one person. Difference is, according to the New York Times, Biden is expected to surpass $300 million raised in August, which would shatter a record. Frank, it wasn't all that long ago. People might think it's been, months and months and months ago, but it hasn't been all that long ago that Biden was broke, right?
Yeah.
His campaign was broke, and now he's surpassing 300 million. What a difference a couple of months make. I wonder how many favors Trump did for him just by Kenosha. Today is a great example.
Really talks, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. I didn't see anything that how much fundraising Trump did. How much do you want to bet that Biden's 300 million surpassed Trump's last month?
I would be, I think it's a safe 2-to-1 bet that he surpassed it during that time period. I mean, maybe even 3-to-1 easily, because if it was during that time period that came close to that, we'd be hearing about it by now, because of the little man syndrome that Trump has, in terms of his ego has to, he has to show that he's better than everybody else. He would certainly put it out there if he got donations, anywhere near that or above that. So the fact that we haven't heard that it makes them.
Yeah, I wonder how much that's going to affect him and how he's going to lash out whenever he sees that Biden now outraised him for a month too. Because of 300 million, that's not a walk in the park. That's a serious scratch. That's over $250 million in 1 month with a B.
And he's got enough of the big, like a lot of the big corporate players are lining up to get behind Biden now, and so it's not just going to be the grassroots donations, which is huge, but you've got these, I think the guy from Home Depot, the Atlanta Falcons owner, is in with Biden now. His partner's in with Trump, but he's in with Biden. He's the more visible guy. I think we've got. I'm not sure if Jeffrey Lurie, but I think Jeffrey Lurie is starting to line up with Biden now, the Philadelphia Eagles owner. So, sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay, Frank. It's hard to drive and talk to me and do the phone all at the same time.
Yeah, well, we had a friend who's calling me just now, so I just had to make sure he knows that I can't talk at the moment.
Yeah. I'm waiting. I'll be honest. I'm waiting for Cuban to jump on board.
Yeah, I mean, I think that his sentiment and philosophy is on that side. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. The guy from Shark Tank who was also on there, with Cuban, I can't remember his name, Kevin something.
Mhm.
He said that the markets will be just fine if Biden wins. So
Oh,
you're
sure they
seeing
will, yeah.
folks who are sending reassurances to people who are interested in the market, who think that somehow that Trump is better for the market than Biden would be.
Yeah. And again, I apologize for jumping around a little bit. I really do. I'm just not very good at segues. It's a shame Master Grant's not here because he rocks those things. I don't know if you saw about the mini strokes that everybody's talking about Trump having. You think there's any truth to that? I'll be honest. I kind of do. It was reported that back a few months ago, he I don't know if you remember, he had an emergency trip to Walter Reed in the middle of the night, and
Yeah.
the scuttlebutt is he not only did he have a quote unquote mini stroke, that over the course of some time he's had a series of them. I don't know if you noticed the way he walks, the way he moves. That ramp at West Point was going to what was a great example of how he can't move. You think there's any truth to this? That maybe he did have a stroke or two?
Yeah. So I think so. I think that.
I got a message from Frank before we started this segment that he's gonna be going through a dead zone, so he's probably gonna drop out, and sure enough, he did. So before I wrap this up, I want to say that I do believe that there is some truth to that. I think that there's more than enough evidence to at least consider the possibility that this guy's been having a series of minor strokes. You can tell by the way he walks. Like I said, the fact that he couldn't go down the ramp at the West Point graduation, the fact that he couldn't drink a glass of water. All of that makes me tend to believe that there might be something to this story. We'll see if it's actually the truth. But in either case, I think there is. Anyhow, folks, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm not going to try to get Frank back on. Like I said, he's going through a bad area right now, and by the time he gets through it, it'll be too late. So for everybody watching, thank you very much. Lou will not be with us tomorrow. It's Wednesday, and he's got his he's got a golf. You know how golfers are. But Frank and I will be back here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. So for everybody watching, thank you so very much, and we will see you tomorrow. But until then, goodbye